I didn't miss a single Apple keynote since 1986, and I'm pretty aware of each and every single rumor. I saw all these funny concepts of a potential future iPhone years before the iPhone was announced. And today I will share with you why I'm pretty sure that Apple will transition to Nvidia graphics card. Maybe a RTX 3080, maybe a 3060, maybe a very special just for Apple designed Nvidia graphics card. I'm very sure that we will see this surprising change at this year WWDC in just a few days. And I know no one talks about that, but that's exactly what was when in 2005 Steve Jobs shocked the entire Apple world with the transition from IBM processors to Intel processors. There was no rumor before, not a single person expected something like this before. Apple was joking so much about Intel. They spent huge advertising budgets and did everything they could to give Intel a bad branding before suddenly on one day they decided to switch to Intel. But was it its pricing? Was it a short notice? No, it wasn't. In reality, Apple was years already preparing this transition to be ready with their OS X system to use both IBM processor architecture or Intel processor architecture. And after the huge announcement in 2005, so it took like 2 or 3 months that Apple rebranded Intel to be a high quality processor. And at the end of the day, that was the only chance to stay competitive because Intel was just making much better processors back in the day than IBM did. So at this year WWDC, Apple will announce their use in their Pro Macs, the Mac Pro and the MacBook Pro using Nvidia graphics cards. And this is why. The M1 chip that Apple currently uses in their consumer Macs and in their currently iPad Pro is not as fast as most people say it is. I highly recommend watching the video of Rene Ritchie where he explains all the details. Well, this is for freaks, but all the details in the processor architecture about this Apple Silicon chips. And he's definitely right. He says that the M1 chip is an incremental update from the previous A14 or A12X chip that are in the current iPhone or in the previous iPad Pro. And once more, it was a very great branding Apple created around this chip. M1, it's new, it's great, so much better. But in reality, it's really just an incremental upgrade from the previous mobile processors. And yes, they were already great. The iPad already had an amazing 4K video editing experience with LumaFusion, better than on the Mac. The iPad already had great graphics, like super smooth and super fast and opening apps and starting the device, everything so fast. Yes, that's an amazing device. The latest iPhone, the latest iPads are incredible devices. Yes, they can compete now with Pro Max. Like a few years now, like 2, 3, 4 years, these iPads are already extremely fast. And there was no reason for Apple not to decide to use their own chips now also in their Macs. But does this mean that they are ready with graphics card for Pro users in their MacBook Pro and in their Mac Pro to have like graphic chips really for the need of Pro users? Number 2, Apple always had been using a dedicated graphics card for their Pro users. The graphics chip that's right now included in the M1 chip that's used in the consumer Macs like the iMac and the MacBook Air, and yes, in the smaller MacBook Pro. This is something Apple always did with their smaller MacBook Pro, the 13 or 14 inch, with the MacBook Air, just with the regular MacBook. With the iMac, the smaller versions and the consumer-oriented versions always had a graphics chip on the processor chip, like the Intel chip. On these computers, the Intel chip also had a graphics chip like built in. But that's just not powerful enough for Pro users. It's not enough to stay competitive in the market. Pro users just need more power, much more power. Of course, video editing is fine with the M1 chip, but if you really do like really advanced video editing with all the effects and special effects, 3D tracking and so on, you really need a very fast graphics card. Number 3. I believe in Apple's capacity to develop its own graphics chip, like really powerful graphics chip. But development of processors and graphics chip takes a long time. And yes, Apple started that and they already created all these great chips. But again, the M1 chip is just an incremental upgrade from the previous mobile chips. To be competitive with a company like Nvidia that has so powerful, incredible powerful graphics cards. And Nvidia acts fast. They are such a great company. And no, I'm not sponsored by Nvidia, but they are just really like top-notch developers. Yes, also a company as huge as Apple is not capable in developing such a competitive graphics chip in such a short amount of time. Number 4, Apple is an exponential organization. And number 5, Apple doesn't have an ego. Let me explain both points together what that means. An exponential organization is a company which is organized very flexibly, that can act fast like a startup. Steve Jobs said that again and again. Apple is the biggest startup in the world. It's made of many small companies in one huge corporation. And that's true. They know that it's so much more important today than ever before to be flexible, to act fast, make changes, to stay competitive. And how this usually works is that these companies work with other smaller companies and suppliers, but on the long run, they try to organize it vertical. Like vertical means they do more in-house. That means as soon as they make some changes, they have to work with other companies, with other suppliers to get everything done in one wonderful product. And by the way, this is what I mean with Apple doesn't have an ego. They just want to provide the best product for the customer as possible. And they know that they have to work with other companies to make this happen in the first place, before they later start to make it vertical organized. So that means like everything in-house. Same what they're doing with their processors right now. So they started working with processors from other companies because it was just too much work, took too much time to start with an own processor, or too much money. Right from the beginning. So they had to work with other companies' processors before they started developing their own processor. So making it in-house, and this means vertical organized. They know they have to do the same now for the pro computers with graphics cards. So last but not least, you may wonder why Nvidia, why not AMD? They have this contract with AMD for years now, and they were exclusively with AMD. And that's part of the point. Apple doesn't have an ego. Of course, they said in the past, no, we only want to work with AMD Radeon cards and they're the best. But in reality, they weren't the best. You could buy like the Mac Pro like for $50,000 and get like a dual AMD Radeon graphics card just made for the Mac Pro. That was still much slower than the RTX, Nvidia RTX 3090 graphics card for for a fraction of the price. I know many people of you guys probably still think, hey, this guy is crazy, this guy has no idea. Hey, but let me know in your comments below, what's your opinion? Do you think we will see Nvidia graphics cards in the new generation of Pro Max? Or do you think Apple will be able to come up with their own graphics chip for Pro customers? Let me know in the comments below. We will get an answer very soon at this year's WWDC. I can't wait what they will announce. I recently switched from Apple computers to PC because of their much more powerful graphics cards that Apple just can't keep up with. The M1 and the graphics is so much slower than my PC with the RTX 3090 graphics card. The difference is huge, and I would be more than happy to see the Mac with a much faster graphics cards very soon. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'm looking forward to your comments and see you next time.